Another episode of the Author Collaborative. I'm doing this after a really long time, so I'm really excited to talk to today's guests. And we'll be discussing our books, our reading, our writing habits. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I have changed the format a bit, so this is going to be a little different from the sessions that I have done so far. So do stay tuned, and I'm sure we are going to have a lot of fun. Thank you, Subtle Shimmer, for joining. I have my guest here now. Let's invite her. Hello, Devansh. Thank you for joining. Hope you're well.
Hi.
Hi, Venuka. Finally.
Yes,
How are
finally.
you?
Good, good. How are you? I seem to
All
do
good, all
something or
good.
the other every time.
Yeah.
Um,
So
it's
people
okay.
were
I'm here
waiting,
now.
and I was a monologue was going on while I was inviting you to. I was like, अब क्या बात करूँ? अब क्या बात करूँ?
I don't know what happened. Anyway, abhi ho gaya. We're not too late.
No, no, we are not. So thank you and congratulations on your latest releases. Whatever. I think you published three more books after the last time we had a chat.
Maybe two more.
Okay,
I think.
so
I
भी
don't
है.
know.
Congratulations. I know that there are five books in all, so
Yes, there are
congratulations.
five. Yes, thank you. And same to you. You also published recently. So it
Yes,
was nice reading your book.
thank you so much. I also genuinely enjoyed reading your book, especially because it talks about an issue that most couples face in their married life, or any couples who are together and planning to start a family of their own. So it was really nice. It was relatable, and I'm sure a lot of people must have said the same thing to you after reading that this was kind of a very personal story, right?
Yeah, I mean, not everybody goes through it in the kind of way that I've described it, but this book essentially deals with the topic of infertility, and in today's world, it is very, very common. Um, and I think this is the book for which I always get some response from some of the people who have read the books. But for this book, it was a very, very emotional kind of a response. Like in the night, the book released at at midnight, and early in the morning, I had like these DMs and texts about, very, very personal kind of questions and very emotional kind of response. Which was really heartening because for the longest time, I wasn't even sure that I would ever publish this story
Hmm.
because
Okay.
it was just too close to my heart. Like, this is a fictional story, but the topic of infertility is something that I've lived through. So writing it was just very emotional, and I don't know, it's not the kind of typical, boy meet girl, pyar ho gaya kind of books
Hmm,
that I
hmm, hmm.
usually write. So I wasn't sure if I should even, publish it. Like, I was like, will my readers even, people are used to different stories from me. But then I thought,
We
why
have
not?
a
Like, I've
question
written it, so
from one of the people who have joined us. Devansh is asking infertility. What's the title? Sounds fascinating.
oh,
So if you could just hold the book and
yeah, 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 I have it with me. It's called Why Am I Not Enough? It's a short story. It's only 30 pages. And I mean,
yeah,
the
and
topic
and
is
you
just,
can finish it in 1 hour maximum.
yeah,
So
yeah, maximum. It's very, very short. It's only 30 pages. It's a short story. And in some
yeah,
ways, it had to be for me, it had to be a short story. This is a topic about which I could not just go on and on about because I was pretty much crying the entire time I was writing it. So it was
which
more
actually
of
brings me to my questions that I had for you today, and I already somewhat know what you're hinting at through the way you are talking about it. So my first question to you is, what is your favorite memory of writing the book? While you were penning down this, what's your favorite memory from that time?
Yeah, like I don't have, I mean, I won't call it a favorite memory, but my most prominent memory from that time is this only is crying. Because I don't know, I write in two different kinds of modes. Sometimes I write things that are just brewing inside of me. I say this many times that writing is therapeutic for me. Like sometimes I write because I have to, to
Hmm.
process something that's going on in my mind. And sometimes, I have the beginnings of a story, then I sit in a systematic way, I think about a plot, and then I'll write. So there are two different modes under which I write. And this short story came out in that first mode. in that
Hmm.
emotional kind of mode. Like there was these thoughts that were going on inside of my head, and I was going through many things, processing many things. And this topic of infertility, since I've lived through it, it was very difficult for me to talk to people about it, because I used to just get very very emotional, and बस रोने लग रहे हैं तो अब कुछ नहीं हो पा रहा है. So I was like, I need to, process this. And so this short story came out in that sort of a way. So it was not like something I planned and sat and decided कि मैं इसके बारे में story लिखूंगी. It was just there somewhere in my head, and it just kind of came out. So that's the
It was
only
very
mode in
organic,
which,
matlab, it was
yeah,
quite
yeah.
organic for you.
Yes, for this for me was very, very organic. That's the only mode in which I have, in my whole life, maybe I've written one or two poems, and they have come out in that sort of a way, like when I'm very emotional about something. So this is not a poem, it's a short story, but it came out in that kind of a way, in this very organic kind of a way for me. So that's my like core memory of writing this
No, but
story.
I don't remember where I read or I heard some writers sometime saying that, unless and until your own writing doesn't make you feel cathartic, or doesn't make you feel certain emotions, like you have goosebumps, or it makes you cry, or it makes you recall a time when you were very emotional in your life, it's not going to reach out to the readers also. So the way you are telling that it made you cry while you were writing,
Yeah.
it just goes on to show how good of writing it is.
Yeah, it was just a topic that was way personal for me, and I mean that's just it's just I wrote it without like when I wrote it, I didn't write it with the intention of publishing it. But when
Hmm.
it was written, I sent it to like a few people who are close to me, my sister and my friends and all, and they were like, "You've written it well. Why don't you like? There might be people who can relate to this. You should put it
Hmm.
out there. Since you've written it, what's the harm? Just put it out there." So I put it out
Which brings me to
there.
my next question. Since you are already hinting at this, and I want to know how what this experience was like. What was your favorite memory after publishing the book? Because you are already saying you were hesitant about putting it out. So what was
Yes,
that
yes,
like?
yes.
After you put it out, what was the response like? And were you like happy that you took that plan and decided to publish it?
Yeah, I was happy about it because when the book got published, right after that, like the very next morning, I had people sending me messages about how it resonated with them and was a feel good book, because many times the topic of infertility, people deal with it in this very bhayankar kind of way, like something biggest tragedy in
Yeah,
your life that is going to ruin you
yeah,
forever. In today's world, infertility doesn't have to be like that. You have
yeah.
the old way of thinking about info. ये तो बांझ है, इसको society से निकाल दो. वो a lot of the
Right.
popular kind of media, when when people talk about infertility, even in like a lot of serials and things, and in Hindi, मतलब India maybe culture में and all of that, it is talked about in this sort of a
Yeah,
way
in a
which
very
is
negative
very
manner.
very
It's
negative,
yeah.
and it is something that people, like for many people, it is very yeah, I mean, they take it as an insult if somebody
Hmm.
says कि
Hmm.
तुमको कोई infertility का problem हो सकता है. They take
Hmm.
it as an insult, and I've kind of, it has happened to me also. Like I'm generally talking to some lady. I mean, I have kids. कभी कभी वो होता है trigger for people to talk to each other. Sometimes people have this reaction. अरे मेरे को कैसे ये हो सकता है? So I
Hmm.
wanted, yeah, so I wanted a story, like a positive story about infertility, that it is something that happens to a lot of people. Many people may not accept it, but it happens to a lot of people. I was reading somewhere that, as it's like 20% of women and maybe like 20% of men
Hmm.
have some level of infertility or the other. And
Correct.
miscarriage is also very, very common. Like when I had a miscarriage, I was just totally shocked. And the doctors usually they take it in a ठीक है फिर try कर लेंगे next time. But when you're
Hmm.
going through something very, very, when you're already having such a tough time getting pregnant, and you get pregnant and it doesn't work out, फिर वो बहुत emotionally it is very difficult to
Yeah,
deal with.
it's a
And
traumatic experience
but
that not many people address.
yeah, and then people just try to hide it under the cover. But then
Hmm.
once I went through this experience, and then I talked to a few friends, and they're like, "Oh yeah, हमारा भी बच्चा होने से पहले हमारे साथ ऐसा हुआ था. What's the big deal?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, for me it was kind of like मैं तो पागल हो रही थी. How can you just say it is not a big deal?" So these are things that people don't always talk about unless it's in a very close kind of a circle. And yeah, somebody saying I hadn't considered infertility in men, but it is very real.
Yeah,
When
it is
I was
real.
facing infertility, It was very eye-opening for me because I am just one of those people. If I'm going through something, I will read a lot about it. So I went online and looked at all the statistics, and and I also talked to a lot of people. And it can happen. Like infertility in men is also very, very real. Although the treatment usually they will not have to go through too much treatment. Many
Hmm.
times it's, some hi-fi treatment that they will make the woman go through. But it is very real. Infertility can affect both men and women, and it is a surprisingly high number of people who have some level of infertility. अगर कुछ तो level of treatment चाहिए होता है. And people talk about it as कि कुछ बहुत there's something very wrong with you. Yeah, it will ruin your life or something. But in today's world, a lot of the different aspects of infertility are understood as far as medicine goes. So
Yeah.
if you have some reasonable amount of financial resources, and if you are like a open-minded person, then there are lots of options, you know.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to
Right.
write a positive story about the whole thing. Uh, and there's another experience actually. When I myself was sitting at an infertility clinic, um, the word usually I heard is low motility for men. Infertility doesn't automatically make that connection. No, there are men who have zero sperm. There is something called azoospermia. It happens to 1% men. Because I've read a lot about infertility, I know. But so men can be infertile, and it may be from birth or it may happen due to some accident or something. In which case, Vicky Donor, yaad hai na? Vicky Donor story. Why was there a Vicky Donor movie? Because sometimes you need a sperm donor. And in
Hmm.
today's world, many times you need an egg donor also. For women, also
Hmm.
sometimes ovulation stops. So it's
Hmm.
kind of like half adoption kind of a thing, like you're getting the genetic material from somewhere else. That also falls under the big umbrella of this whole infertility thing. There is also this option of surrogacy. Like if you have your genetic material, but your womb is not able to carry the pregnancy. So
Hmm.
there's so many controversial topics in infertility, and not everybody is comfortable with all sorts of intervention. Some people may draw the line
Hmm.
कि नहीं अगर donor sperm या egg की जरूरत है तो we will not go for it. Some people may be like अगर surrogacy की जरूरत है then we will not go for it. And some people trivialize the matter. Like I was myself sitting at an infertility clinic once, and there were these people generally just outside. There were two guys talking, अरे इतने infertility clinic हो गए हैं, दुनिया में इतने अनाथ बच्चे हैं, लोगों को just adopt कर लेना चाहिए, और क्यों ये सब हरकतें कर रहे हैं. And that was kind of really an eye-opening thing for me because I used to think that I'm one of those people when I was much younger. When I hadn't gone through it myself, I was like, why do people even need to do this? Can't they just adopt? And now that people who are in my peer group are trying to adopt, I can see how difficult it is. And infertility has its own gradation. Like if you think ये दो दवाई खा के मेरा बच्चा हो जाएगा, तो then what's the problem? Because adoption in itself is this whole topic on its own. And many people, they're like, मैं तो adopt कर लूंगी, but will my family be okay with it? उस बच्चे के लिए,
Hmm.
the moment you become a parent, or you start thinking about becoming a parent, you start thinking about your kid. वो बच्चा पैदा होने से पहले ही, you're thinking about your kid कि मेरे बच्चे पे क्या असर पड़ेगा उसका.
Hmm.
Right? So I mean, it is a complicated thing. It is a huge thing, but it doesn't have to ruin your life. It doesn't have to ruin your life if you are in a caring family and open-minded people, and you know.
You are giving a lot of wisdom to Devansh, who is working on a book and it deals with grace of an Indian marriage. So, wow,
Oh,
yeah, I'm person. Wonderful.
great! All the best for your book. It's very exciting. So, but yeah, for me, this topic, I have a lot to say about this topic simply because I have lived through some aspects, and when I was living through some aspects of it, I have talked to many other people. When I go to someone ki mere saath ye problem hua hai, so then they are more
Hmm.
open to discussing their other different varied problems. So I have lots of like small stories, but I write fiction. So I've taken kind of the essence from all of those stories and given a hopeful picture that if people
Hmm.
are not narrow minded, and if people are loving and caring and understanding towards each other, it doesn't have to ruin your life one way or the other. It doesn't have to
Correct.
be so terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Since we have spoken so much at length already about the book,
Sorry,
now
sorry.
let no, no. Why should we? We are promoting each other's books, so that's what the session is about. So,
Yeah.
no, my point was that people must be already curious. Those who are listening to us, they must be
Uh-huh.
curious about the book and the contents now. So, let us give them a little sneak peek into the book. Can you read out a few paragraphs?
Oh, yeah, sure, sure. Okay. So this book is Abhi and Seema's story. So Abhimanyu and Seema, they met each other more than a decade ago. They've been married for like 8 years, and now they're facing these problems with fertility and everything. And their life is pretty much in a very, very bad situation right now. So then this book is about how they deal with it and everything. So this is a short story, only 30 pages. So I'll just read
Read
in the
the
beginning part, maybe
read the part which is your probably which stands out in your mind from the entire
see,
book. Then
yeah,
an
no, but if
incident
I
from the
read,
story.
I- it'll be
अच्छा वो
confusing.
स्पॉइलर हो जाएगा फिर वो
कुछ
जाने दो.
spoiler भी हो सकता है और कुछ confusing भी हो सकता है. Some of the very emotional parts are in the end also. Then I don't want to, it will be very confusing.
Hmm.
So maybe I'll read this part. So this is basically a part where Abhimanyu is thinking about, how life has changed since the first
Hmm.
time they met each other. He's thinking about how it was the first time they met each other and what it is like
Hmm.
right now when they're
Hmm.
struggling with this kind of a situation. So when they met each other and at a party, and then the next evening they were supposed to meet each other at a coffee shop or something. No, 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 let it be only 30 pages. Yes, yes, I'll read only one page out of 30, so it will not be so bad. So he had indeed dreamt of her that night. And when she showed up at the coffee shop at 6:10 p.m. the next evening, he was sure he was in big trouble. She looked so sexy in her flared black pants and sleeveless crop top. Sorry, the meeting ran late, she apologized, and she took a seat in front of him. I don't think I've ever had my date apologize to me for being only 10 minutes late. I guess that means you're usually on time for dates. I like that in a man, she said. She was so confident and radiant, and they had so much in common. Definitely sci fi over horror. Any day, she agreed with him. Inception? He asked her. Sure, it's a date then. Things were different at this juncture in their life, though. 8 years into their marriage, they were living more like roommates who didn't really get along with each other. It had been over a year since they had watched a movie together, and whenever he suggested that they go for a trip abroad, she would snap at him. How can you even think about all that right now? It was like they were robots doing their jobs and getting home to eat the food that the cook had prepared for them, and then going back to the office the next morning. The weekends were reserved for staying out of each other's hair so as not to start a fight. Abhi had taken to spending more time on his workouts at the gym, and Seema had taken to reading books. Books that Abhi couldn't relate to. Books about people who never had kids out of choice, and people who never had kids because of medical reasons, and people who never had kids after their kids were no more. She also read books about people who had kids after prolonged medical treatment. The doctors tell you what to do and what to expect, Abhi would say to Seema. Why do you want your whole life to revolve around it? Why can't you think about anything else? How can you be so sensitive? She would retaliate. I thought you loved me, but you don't get me at all. There was a time when they used to get each other. There was a time they would be on the same page. How about Goa in December? He had asked her the year before they got married. Sounds amazing. I'll book the resort, she replied. I'll book the flight, he volunteered. They used to love traveling together and watching movies together and just being with each other, but not anymore. In her obsession to have a baby, Seema had forgotten how to live. It happened.
Devansh is saying that his editor brain is feeling this could be expanded to a novelette, if not a novella.
See, this could have been expanded to a full novel also. But when I wrote this story, the whole topic of infertility was still very, very difficult for me. I mean, going through infertility was very, very, I don't know, it changed me in many ways. And it was difficult for me to be in this mode of writing about it. So
Yeah.
I had this little thing in my head and I got it out of my system. So it is because of personal reasons. This is the shortest book that I have ever published. Out of my 5 books, this is a minimum page count. But that's because it was difficult for me. Like I really, really, you know, appreciate and respect people who write big memoirs and, about the trauma that they have faced. it has
Hmm.
got to be very hard. Because for me, even getting this short story out, which is fiction, but still on a topic that was difficult for me, it was very, very difficult because it just brought back the whole, the whole depressing vibe of going through it. Because, when you actually go through infertility, it becomes such a number game. I mean,
Hmm.
there are a lot of people who have not been through it. They're like, ah, theek hai na, if it doesn't work out, IVF kara lenge. But it's not like
Hmm.
that. Like, when your first cycle fails, and then you get pregnant, and then you have a miscarriage, and then you've been going through treatment for many years, and then you look at your doctor's office, and behind there is this board of this emotional letter where this woman has written about how she went through IVF for 7 years straight before she had her baby. And you're like, oh my God, do I have to go through this for 7 years? Am I going to be one of those people? Should I give up now? Will I ever have a baby? So it was for me, it was a lot. It was a very, very emotionally kind of, it was difficult topic for me. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I don't think I can write. I mean, somebody else is welcome to take my short story and expand it into whatever they feel like. But I
Right.
don't know if I will be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now that brings me to my last round for you, which is the rapid fire. Are you ready for that?
Ooh, okay.
We have another comment from Divansh. I don't have the full context of your body of work or your process, so I won't comment further, but I stand by my observation. Just my opinion. Yes, of course, each
Yeah.
reader has their opinion. Each person who is into books, writing books or reading books, they have an opinion of their own. That's what I believe makes the creative industry so dynamic, because there are no two people who can think the same way or look
Yes.
at the same piece of work in the same manner.
Agreed. 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 That's true.
Yes. Okay. So that brings me to my rapid fire round for you. Uh, are you there? Did I lose you? Hello. Hello. Yes, I lost you for a bit. Can you see
Yeah,
me, hear me?
so yeah, I can see you and hear you, but I just had a power cut, and so my light is all gone, so you probably can't see me. So yeah,
Yeah, I can't
I
see you.
just wait 1 second. I will see if I open the door, maybe there'll be some light. Just a second.
Yeah. Please stay with us for a while. We had a power failure from Venuka's end, so she will be able to join us in a bit. Yes, we can see all of her books in the bookshelf there before she comes onto the screen, so you can have a look at all the book covers.
Yeah, can you see me now?
Yes, I was just telling that
Yeah,
before you come onto the screen, we were able to have a good look at all your books
all my books.
behind.
Yes, yes, they're right there. Yeah, I had kept the door shut because it's too noisy, but right now without the light, I guess can't help
Yeah,
it. I'm
thank
sitting
God
here.
we are doing this in daytime then.
Yes, if it were nighttime, I wouldn't have had this option. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Venuka, are you ready for your rapid fire round?
Okay, I guess.
Okay. So this is an question which I have been asked a lot. So I wanted to ask you also. A
Okay.
character you have named after someone you know in real life. One of the characters in your book or your stories that you have
Oh,
named after someone you know
yes, yes,
in
yes,
real.
yes. Yeah, so in my first novel, in my debut novel, You're Stuck With Me for Life, this one, there is Ronit has a friend called Nandu, उसका pet name है, kind of. So my husband has a friend जिनको नंदू बुलाते हैं सब लोग.
Oh, how cute.
So yeah,
Nice.
he's very happy that he featured in my book.
Oh,
But
nice,
there's
nice.
not much detail about him. But yeah, there is the Nandu
Okay.
exists in real
Yeah.
life.
Okay. Because I have done this personally with a few of my
Okay.
characters. Again, this is a question which comes from personal experience. A
Mhm.
personality trait that you have given to a character which you yourself wish you had.
Um, okay, so my latest novel, Because It's You, it has this scientist. Her name is Shweta. Um, and yeah, I wish I was a little bit more like her in some ways, because being too agreeable isn't always good for you. Like
Uh,
she's one of those people who doesn't really always care about what people think about her. She'll do her own thing and um, at the expense of her colleagues not always liking her. Because sometimes in your professional life, to get things done, you have to order people around. So, and for men, many times those traits are looked at in a positive way. For women, it is tends to be more likely
hmm.
that they will,
Nurtured here.
it is, I don't know, it is just this social and cultural or whatever kind of a thing, but
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it is true. And I wish sometimes that I was a little bit more like Shweta in that kind of a way and not always so agreeable,
Hmm.
so to say.
Totally. I relate to that.
Yeah.
Okay. My next question is again based on my experience in the writing industry. So, one thing that you like, not like, I mean, you feel it's the easy part about being a writer, and one thing you feel is the most difficult part about being a writer.
Uh,
Yeah.
writing is also the most difficult part because there are days when it is so easy to write because there is something on your mind and just words just flow out. But there are days when you're just stuck. So writing in itself can be very easy on one day and it can be very difficult on the next day.
So true. Yeah, yeah.
So
Definitely.
there are ups and downs. Writing in itself is not always so smooth sailing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is very interesting because I recently had this experience again. A series or movie that made you feel like it is adapted, but it was not actually adapted.
Oh, so this happened to me very, very recently. A few days ago, I was watching this movie on Netflix. It's this English, like this Hollywood movie. I think it was called Look Both Ways or something. So it is this movie about this young girl just graduating from college and she's not feeling well and her friend insists कि pregnancy test ले लो कभी कुछ हो सकता है. And so she
Mm-hmm.
takes a pregnancy test and that's where the story splits. Like in one version, she found out she's pregnant and she's keeping the baby. In the other version of the reality, she was never pregnant.
Ah,
So
okay.
how her life
Oh,
turns out very different based on that one event in her life.
hmm.
And when I was watching this movie, I had this feeling कि ये story कहाँ मतलब ये story मतलब कुछ familiar लग रहा है. Is this from a book that I've read or whatever?
Hmm.
And I went on Wikipedia and all and didn't look like it was adapted from any book. But then I went through my
Really?
whole Goodreads list. I was like, recently क्या पढ़ा है? And I found a Taylor Jenkins Reid की मैंने एक book पढ़ी थी. It is called In Another Life. So there also there is
Ah,
this two parallel realities about this woman
hmm.
who moves back to her hometown and she runs into her ex-boyfriend or something.
Hmm.
And then in one version of the reality, she decided to, stay at the party and hang out with him and give another chance to their relationship. And in another version of the reality, she was like, no, 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 I'm here for a new beginning. Why go back to the old boyfriend? Let me not hang
Hmm.
out with him and go. Though just that one decision that she took and how different her life turned out in both of those
Right.
realities. So that movie was not adapted from any book, but I just seemed so familiar. मुझे लगा ये कहीं तो so it turns out I read another different book which had like a similar idea. But the
Hmm.
details of the
Okay.
stories are very, very different. It's like here it
Okay.
is a decision that someone is taking, and here it is like just some accidental event. Like, sometimes you end up pregnant even after taking lots of precautions. So it is just something that happened to that girl, kind
Okay.
of. So yeah.
Devansh has already told us what movie you are talking about. It's Look Both Ways, starring Lily Reinhardt.
Yes, yes, yes. Look both ways. Yes, yes. Watched it recently. I think it was released this year only.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That brings me to my last question for you today, which is one thing from the 90s that you wish you could revive in the book or, the publishing industry or the reading industry.
From the 90s. Okay, what was I doing in the 90s? I was in school. I don't know. Uh, I don't think we need to revive anything because the best things never go away. Harry Potter is still there, yeah. What more do we need?
Correct. That is true. Right.
So it's okay. Like I'm pro future. I don't dwell too much on the past. I feel like the best thing people won't let go. It's okay.
Oh, we have had a similar Hindi movie. Devansh is telling us that
Okay.
we had a uh, movie on this concept in the Hindi cinema called
Okay.
Ek Second में. It had Manisha Koirala.
Oh. एक second में. हाँ, the name makes sense, but I haven't watched that movie.
I
So
have not even heard the
yeah, I have
title.
not heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Vivansh, for that wonderful, trivia. Yeah, we were not aware about it.
Yeah.
Okay, Venuka, that brings me to the end of my questions that I had for you today related to your book and, your writing experiences. I leave the floor open to you now.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. So your book that I read, Peace of Mind for Your Peace of Mind. So this is a collection of so many poems. Like there's like more than 40 poems in your book. So I have never, written a book of poetry. So I was just curious about how did you go about writing this book? Like, did you decide कि ठीक है, I will write so many poems and blah, or is it something that happened in a more organic sort of way where you were anyway, you had a collection and you just rounded it up or something? So just curious.
So I will tell you how this collection happened. There was always a plan that I will publish a poetry book because a lot of my readers who have read all of my books, they know that poetry is always a part of every book that I have written.
Yes.
Even if I was writing a novel, there were three poems in it where the lead character is a poet and a writer. And when I wrote Under the Mistletoe Another Story, which was my book previously,
That
uh,
had poetry in the end. Yes.
yeah, it also had poetry, and my debut book itself was a poetry collection, and I was not very happy with the way I worked on the book or the kind of response that I got from that book. So I always had it in mind कि अगर करना है तो ठीक से फिर से एक बार करूंगी क्योंकि now I know how to go about writing a good book. I have improved as a writer. I know how to promote it. I know how to reach the right audience. I know a lot of things better than I knew when I put out the debut book. So that was always there. Uh, Fortunately for me, I'm a part of a blogging community called Blog Chatter, and they had this series of writing A to Z. Uh, they had this A to Z challenge where you were supposed to write from each alphabet of the English.
I remember this post from a
Yeah.
while ago. Yes,
So
yes,
I
yes.
was writing poetry related to each alphabet from the
Uh-huh.
English alphabet. So A to Z happened because of that. So I wrote 26 poems for that particular challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I have a chance to put out my book, which I already had in mind that I want to do it sometime sooner or later. So 26 poems were already there, but I had a
Mm-hmm.
feeling that 26 are not enough because I remember in my debut book I had 32 poems, and a lot of the people who read it were like, "बहुत कम poems है यार, ज़्यादा होनी चाहिए." So I always had it in mind कि अगर दूसरी poetry book आएगी तो 32 से ज़्यादा poems तो करनी ही है.
So
So
based on popular demand, basically.
yes. So then I got around to I already had a particular theme that I had worked on during the challenge. So I was like,
Mhm.
let's work on expanding that particular theme only and write a few more poems based on emotions that I have already covered in the 26 poems that were already written. So
Mhm.
I continued that particular theme. I changed the titles of the poems. They were different in the challenge. I had named the title the poems as per the emotion that I had worked on. So I changed the titles. I wrote a few more poems focusing on the emotions that I had not already covered, and that's how the book came about.
Very interesting. It was a mix of things.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was very cool.
So, one key thing that I have learned from this experience of writing this second poetry anthology
Mhm.
of mine is that it will come to you organically, but you also have to have a plan in your head कि मुझे करना है. So keep
Uh-huh.
that goal in mind. That
Uh-huh.
I want to do it sooner or later and work on it maybe organically or however the ideas come to stick to it.
Yeah, that kind of resonates with me, especially in the longer, like this short story of mine was an exception, but usually it happens. You have a kernel of an idea, which एक organically
हाँ,
आ जाता है.
हाँ,
But you have to round it up. You have to have
exactly.
that
You have
intent
to
and
keep
sit down in a
the
disciplined way to
idea
wrap
alive.
it up.
Give it, yeah, give it a proper finishing.
Uh-huh.
Keep it in your mind कि मुझे करना है, but keep going back to it also.
Yes, yes, true. That's true. That's very true. Yeah. So, yeah, should I give you your rapid fire now?
Yes, yes, please.
Oh, wait. You should read out your favorite
Oh,
poem
right,
from your book.
right.
Yes, I almost
Yes.
forgot about it.
So This is not my favorite per se from the collection, but I had a
Uh-huh.
lot of fun writing this poem because it talks about very positive things in your life and, the things that make you happy. Especially, focusing on me. These are the things that make me happy. So the poem is titled Moments of Joy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read it. So what I have done with this particular poem is that I have taken each letter of the English alphabet and I have written it using what moment makes me happy related to that particular alphabet.
Uh-huh.
So it goes something like this. A few sources of joy, bucket full of popcorn with your favorite movie, catching up with an old friend, discovering a new place, endings that turn out better than you expected, finding money in the pocket of your trousers, going out for a walk on a sunny day during winter, homecoming after a long gap, in the arms of a loved one, joking or goofing around with your friends, late night conversations, managing to survive a bad experience, not giving up on a long desired goal, opening up to someone, politeness from a stranger, quiet comfort after a chaotic day, raindrops after a heat wave, and the following smell of wet soil, singing along to your favorite song with someone, teaching someone something and them thanking you for the success, unpacking a box of goodies or a gift, visiting a place on your bucket list, waking up without an alarm clock, admiring the little things in life. So this particular is called Z. So
Mm-hmm.
the Z word Z means admiring the little things in your life. Yummy food, zoning out of work and responsibilities.
That's very cool.
Yeah, thank you. I had a lot of fun writing this one because I was thinking of all the things that bring me happiness according to the A to Z format. So I have taken A to Z, like starting from a bucket full of popcorn, things like that.
Yeah. It reminds me of that Sound of Music wala song, Raindrops on Roses and Whiskers
Yeah.
on Kareem. These are a few of my favorite things. This is one of those, but you stuck to the whole A to Z of favorite things or joyous things. It's very sweet.
Thank you, Devans. Thank you so much for sending the claps. I also noticed a few of the people were sending hearts, so thank you very much. Okay, Venuka, this was a lot of fun. I believe you still have the rapid fire for me.
Yes, yes, yes.
That's really
Yes,
fun.
yes, yes. Let's do your rapid fire. Okay. So which is the longest poem you have ever written? Longest poem.
Mm, I think there was a poem that I wrote related to a girl going through the phase of, jitters before her wedding. It had, I think, 10 or 12 paragraphs, and I wrote it up over a period of 1 week, trying to cover each day before the wedding and how she feels while she's going through that phase.
Oh wow. So where, like, is this poem published somewhere? I would like to read it.
Yes, yes, it's there on my blog. I'll share it on my
Okay.
stories, and
Yeah,
I'll
you
also send
should.
you.
And this is very selfish reasons. I'm yeah working on another book and this topic would be useful for me. So I'm looking for
I'll definitely share
yes, yes, you should. I'll remind you. I'll remind you. Okay, so you have written a novel called Love Triangle, which I have
it.
read and really enjoyed reading. So what is your favorite scene from that novel?
There are a lot of favorite scenes, but
I like a
the one
fun
that
story.
stands out for me particularly is,
Uh-huh.
uh, in the initial stages of the book when we are introduced to the characters, and there's the particular chapter where Abhi is talking about his family, and we get to know his family dynamics, and there is a scene where the celebrations of Ram Navami are going on in their house,
Mm-hmm.
and his mother is playing all songs related to Ram Navami, and he's thinking in his mind about the time when his parents met and they had an arranged marriage meeting, and he thinks कि शादी कैसे हुई होगी इनकी, what kind of conversation would have gone on between the two of his parents when they initially met.
Uh-huh.
So there's a scene where he's imagining the dialogues that they exchanged, and he thinks, what would they have
What
talked
would they
about?
have talked about? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a really funny scene. I had a lot of fun reading it. I'm not going to read it out or going to give out what the scene actually is. It was doing the fun,
No, but this that
but
that
I had.
story has a lot of really fun scenes. Like even when Aisha is the girl, right? Or am I mistaken? Right?
Yeah,
So when
yeah,
when
yeah,
her
Aisha.
into like when she kind of crosses paths with each one of those guys, also like really fun kind of introduction.
Yeah,
So it was really I'm sure it was difficult for you to pick one.
yeah. No, but this one stands out for me because I also think in my mind a lot of times when, my what would have happened when my parents met for the first
Yeah,
time. This is
especially
something
you're
that
thinking about your
comes up.
parents in that light is so like difficult
Yeah,
because they're your parents. So it takes a long time, for you to like grow up and accept that they are people, adults, like human
yeah,
beings.
exactly.
So yeah, that's so cute.
Okay, Devansh is
Okay.
also saying, yes, please don't read it out. Been spoiled enough by now. Yes, you should
Yeah, I
read.
did not listen to him and I read one full page out of only 29 pages. So
Oh,
yeah,
we have not enough spoilers, so no.
yeah. Okay, so best and worst part of self-publishing.
The best part is the transparency and the freedom that comes with self-publishing, especially related to KDP. I'm specifically talking about KDP. So that's the best part. The worst part probably is that you have to do all the promotions yourself.
Yeah, totally on your own there.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
have no
I
support
think
of
it
the.
also feels like there's this whole, I feel more responsible for the whole, cover design and editing and everything.
Yeah,
There's no support system. Like you are solely in charge of everything. That
yeah.
can give you a lot of freedom, but it can also be a bit intimidating sometimes.
Yeah. So for people who have anxiety issues like me, it yeah, it's not a very good idea. But then it also keeps me on my toes. So it's kind of
Yeah.
anxiety inducing, but also exciting. So
Mm,
yeah, pick your battles. That it's kind of that.
True, true. That makes sense. Okay. So, if you had to name your next book based on a song from the 90s, what would it be?
I was thinking about this a lot, and the one song that came to me again and again was "Ye Kali Kali Aanखें" because I also recently watched the series, and वही दिमाग में बैठ गया है. Also because I have black
ये
eyes, so
काली काली आंखें तुरुरु, तुरुरु. I remember that song. It was
yeah.
yeah, brings back
And
memories.
and
Yeah,
and
it's
I
very
and I think that's the song I hum the most from the 90s. It comes
okay.
naturally in my mind when somebody says asks me for a reference of any Bollywood song from the 90s. This is like the
That's your
top of my
go-to 90s song.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then that word that Anu Malik does in between. मैं मिला तू मिली.
मैं
That's
मिला
also so
तू मिली मैं मिला दुनिया तेरे something goes like that. Yeah. And his voice was मैं मिला.
मिली.
I get
It's
what
so
you're saying.
funny.
It's
So
funny.
catchy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's catchy. Yeah, true. I get it. Okay, so let us address this situation
Yes.
that I have noticed since the beginning, but I've not said anything about. So
ये
what is
देखो मेरे
the
सुंदर नए बाल.
yes दिखाओ जरा और अच्छे से दिख रहे हैं वैसे तो.
ये देखो.
Sorry. Yeah. So what is the best and worst part of getting your hair colored? Kindly
So
enlighten.
this is not the first time I have done it, but
Yeah.
इतना सारा quantity में पहली बार हुआ है. I've only done a
Okay.
few streaks before. This
Mhm.
time it's a lot more. So from my previous experience, I can say the biggest disadvantage is that you have to carry your own shampoo every time because वो hotel वाले shampoo काम नहीं आएंगे इसमें and your hair will get ruined. So
Yes.
that's the biggest disadvantage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you forget it, you have to hunt for shops. और
Yes.
अगर किसी ऐसी जगह पे गए हो जहाँ ऐसे कॉस्मेटिक्स नहीं मिलते हैं, you are
Then you're
done.
just stuck with your hair being just the way it is.
You roam like a
Yeah.
boot for the rest of the trip then.
Yeah. And then I don't know. I mean, for me, when like I got my hair colored long time ago. Like in my 20s,
Hmm.
I had these phases where I would sometimes get some highlights and streaks and whatnot. Now I'm just like, nahi bhai, nahi ho payega. So for me, one of the things was ki what happens a few months later when the roots start
हाँ.
to show and your hair is like, अंदर से natural सब निकल रहा है. So
Hmm.
decision, are you going to then maintain it, keep getting it done, or should I just,
Yeah, फिलहाल तो मैंने सोचा है
वो
that I'm
decide
going to
करना पड़ता है.
let's
Yeah,
see
so it's like the
if
lot
I
of
get lazy.
maintenance work. But I am too lazy, frankly, I have to admit. That's why I gave up on all this. कि
This
बस
time I
कॉल
have made up
करना
my
सिर्फ.
mind that I will maintain and I will do touch-ups regularly. But let's see.
Yes.
I can't say anything because I am also very lazy when it comes to my hair. Let's see.
But all the best. I mean, power to you. Getting your
Thank you.
hair colored and maintaining it is like, at least in
Yeah.
my books, I never found it very easy, which is why I gave up on it at some point.
Divansh has commented, ये disadvantage तो रहेगा ही cause I am slow with the thumb typing. You all are at least seeing the comments, not everyone does. Of course, I
Yes, for me, since the
love reading the
electricity
comments.
went, now my comments are frozen, so I can't see anything. मेरे पास बहुत पुराना comment है.
Okay,
But
but
Manali
Devansh has
can.
been very active. He has been
Yes,
responding with all questions and comments. Thank you so much, Devansh, for being with us and being such an enthusiastic participant in our lives.
yes, it makes it so much more fun when somebody is there to.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, it's just
Exactly.
two of us talking. और हम लोग तो मतलब इतना familiar हो गए अब ऐसा लग रहा है
We
कि
could
हम
have
तो
just
रोज
ऐसे ही कॉल करके 1 घंटा हम बात कर सकते हैं.
yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you, Venuka, for doing this with me for the third time, I think. Yeah, we've done this for the third time.
I believe this has to be the third time. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you are my like the most loyal guest on.
Yes. Thank you so much for this privilege. I mean, um,
Yeah. So this has
you
been a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me one more time, and I hope we can do this again with our next
definitely,
books.
definitely. I definitely. I mean, I'm waiting for you to publish a novel because you promised you'll publish one more novel. I'm waiting for it.
Pakka, pakka. By the end of this year, I am promising to you
Great,
and to whoever is listening,
great,
my
great. I
next
mean,
novel is coming out. The spin-off to Love
yes.
Triangle is coming out.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, so cool. I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. And we will definitely do this when that comes
Yes,
out.
because you know what? I have been waiting for another novel to come out so that I can read one of your novels. कभी
इतनी
तो मुझे
मजबूरी हो
बहाना
गई
मिले.
मनाली ऐसे ही पढ़ लो एक.
नहीं नहीं मजबूरी की बात नहीं है because you know I am very
No, no, I
shy
get what
of
you're saying.
books which are thick these days. मुझे 100 से कम पेज वाली कोई बुक दे दो मैं तुरंत पढ़ लूंगी बट इफ इट on 150
हाँ,
I'm like नहीं चलता रहेगा यार.
हाँ, टेक्निकली टू बी अ नॉवल 200 पेजेस तो करना पड़ता है.
हाँ exactly. तो
So,
this is
हाँ.
motivation to pick up your books or you know pick up any other books which are more than 150 pages and which have been on my TBR for a very long time. मैं नॉवेल लिखूंगी तब मैं पढ़ूंगी ऐसा.
No, no, yeah, but we should really. I'm looking forward. Love Triangle का spin off है तो मैं तो आते ही पढ़ूंगी.
Thank you so much. That's really sweet of you. But yes, it is coming out very soon.
Sounds good. So we shall meet again very, very soon.
Yes. Thank you for joining me, and thank you everyone, especially Devansh, for being such an active participant in our life. You have
Yeah,
been a
thank you so
wonderful
much.
audience. This video will be up on my IGTV and also on my YouTube channel. So if you have missed any part of the conversation, you can always go back and have a look see later on. Thank you, Venuka. We'll do this
Thank you
again
so
one more
much
time.
for having me. Yeah, it
Bye,
was great.
everyone. Yeah, bye, Venuka.